Les Bach is a proud owner of two Saturn vehicles.
My favorites.
A former Galpin employee, he witnessed the rise and now the fall of Saturn.
From the very beginning of Saturn, from concept to current day, I've watched this automaker grow from ground zero.
Earlier this month, General Motors announced that they will be discontinuing the Saturn brand. Bach's first reaction:
It's bad management of General Motors. Shame on them for phasing out such a brilliant automotive concept.
the announcement came after negotiations with Penske Automotive to buy the GM brand fell through. According to the LA Times, the Saturn shutdown will mean 10 to 13,000 people will lose their jobs. 350 dealerships will close down across the nation, with 40 of them located in California alone. GM says Saturn owners can still go to their Saturn dealer for service on their vehicles. Once dealerships have closed, they'll be able to take their car to any certified GM dealership. However, it's not only about the car for customers like Bach and Kelly Thompson.
They have great customer service, and they've been very great to me, and I hope that other customers can experience what I have.
Initially, when you walk into a Saturn dealership, first off, there is a very no-pressure approach.
Debuted in 1990 to be a competitor against foreign brands, Saturn will not shine for Penske Auto. Reporting in North Hills, for Valley View News, I'm Jill DeLeon.
No, the city attorneys were already contacting us 2 days before that.
Tempers flared among flood victims during a Studio City Council meeting last night. Department of Water and Power officials were on hand to update residents and business owners on construction plans and claim requests. Despite resident frustration, LA DWP Director of Water Distribution Stephen Malinowski says the department has worked efficiently during the disaster.
During this time, we had very few people out of water, very few customers. The water quality has always been always maintained, and the safety of the individuals and our employees are paramount to this process.
Outside of the meeting, the intersection of Coldwater Canyon and Ventura Boulevard is dry. The only sign of the September 5th water main break is a newly paved road, repainted lanes, and a line of sandbags on a sidewalk. But homes one block west of the intersection weren't as lucky. Homeowner Robert Lee recalls having a beautiful green lawn before a water main located in front of his home burst. Now he likens his yard to a construction zone. Lee says it will be a long time until he can completely rebuild his home.
You know, it seems like right now we're getting back to normal. You know, streets open, but the homeowners we're far from normal. You know, back to normal.
Coldwater Canyon was reopened a week after the break, but Lee Street was still getting repaved along the driveways. Around the corner, a strip of privately owned businesses remains closed because of the flood. They hope to return as soon as their stores complete construction. In the meantime, Malinowski says the DWP will be analyzing the infrastructure of the pipes in the Los Angeles County for the next 3 months.
We have cast iron pipes, which is the majority of the pipe that was installed in the 1800s to the 50s, 1950s. So that's the targeted leak mains that we're replacing.
The city will begin replacing some of the older cast iron pipes with the stronger, more flexible pipe within the next few weeks.
The pipes along this road are 95 years old. It was built by then city engineer William Mulholland. In Studio City, I'm Claudian Sarmiento for Valley View News.
It's a quiet afternoon at Station 3 in downtown Los Angeles. However, less than a mile down the road, another story. An active bunch of city officials meet to determine the fate of Station 3 and more than 100 others.
We have very difficult times right now throughout the nation, and of course the state and the city are not immune to this.
The Los Angeles City Fire Department is being forced to cut $56 million in order for the city to balance its budget. Those budget cuts, referred to as brownouts, have significantly reduced the amount of units on the roads. And this has the LA Firefighters Union President Pat McOsker seeing red.
What the mayor said right from the start is that the employees would have to share the sacrifice. And we said, we'll do it. We will absolutely do our share of whatever sacrifice is necessary to get the city through this financial crisis. That's been kind of the sticking point, though, is what is our share.
McOsker says the decrease in units would lengthen response times, further increase the workload at fire stations and potentially endanger lives.
And so when we get there late, unfortunately, in our business, every second counts and lives can be lost.
But some city officials, including District 12 Council member Greg Smith, say that just isn't the case.
I really resent that statement that is really politicizing an untruth. The fact of the matter is we are not closing one fire station in the city of LA.
And while Smith remains optimistic, fellow council member Dennis Zine expressed opposing sentiments.
And that's what we're faced with, lack of dollars, plain and simple.
And while budget cuts in the fire department may spark concern for the people of Los Angeles, firefighters continue to urge safety and personal responsibility. Firefighters are being asked to take a 10 to 20% pay cut in these tough economic times. However, the union finds it unfair considering the city is not asking that of other employees. And until there is a substantial upturn in this financial crisis, the battle between city and union continues. From City Hall, I'm Wendy McNeil, Valley View News.
The nation's deadliest train crash in nearly 4 decades has left more than 20 people dead and hundreds more injured in Chatsworth. The head-on collision was between a southbound freight train and a northbound Metrolink, which was carrying more than 200 passengers to Moorpark. The crash occurred at 4:23 in the afternoon on September 12th, and soon after, firefighters were called to the scene. A Metrolink spokeswoman has confirmed that the crash was caused by human error. The train engineer ran a red signal, which most likely caused the two trains to crash. Usually, a northbound train would pull into a rail siding to allow a southbound train to pass. But because the signal was ignored, both trains traveled on one set of tracks.
Here we are just hundreds of feet away from the crash, where we can see firefighters pulling out bodies one at a time.
Hundreds of firefighters swarmed the scene of the crash, working carefully to rescue people who were still trapped in the train. At this time, hours after the initial crash, 10 fatalities had been confirmed, with the death toll expected to climb higher. Passengers who were injured were taken to a triage center set up near the crash site. Those who were critically wounded were taken in ambulances and helicopters to every nearby trauma center. Areas surrounding the crash site were taped off in order to keep the public away from the scene. Valley View News' Simone Luker spoke with onlookers in the Chatsworth community.
Bystanders wait frantically on the corner of Andorra and Owensmouth in Chatsworth as they wait to hear news from their loved ones. One mother called her son continuously. Another woman was comforted having not heard from her husband, who was on Metrolink 111. As many as 8 helicopters circled above the accordion train cars. Firefighters and police arrived at the scene approximately 10 minutes after the train derailed, which caused terror and carnage. David Kaiser says he heard the two trains collide.
It was loud, and it just sounded like kind of like a pop, and then you instantly almost you saw and heard sirens and helicopters kind of just like getting to the scene.
Firefighters say when the trains collided, 3 plumes of smoke filled the air, and the trains looked as though they were tin canned together. Generous people in the neighbourhood brought water to those helping with the search and rescue.
Everyone was rushing here, and we heard a lot of family members were on the train.
Among the 23 dead was police officer Spree Desha. Officers at the scene formed lines, stood at attention and saluted in silence.
The ties, the concrete ties, they're just exploded up there.
John Zedeka says the wreckage is heartbreaking.
It's very tragic. It's sad. It's going to be very sad.
In the Chatsworth community, Simone Luker for Valley View News.